The wrench slipped from my oil-stained hands and clattered onto the concrete floor of my garage workshop. I'd been rebuilding the carburetor on my 1967 Mustang when my phone started ringing with that shrill tone that always meant trouble. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new oceanfront villa, the Pacific stretched endlessly blue, waves rolling against my private beach below. But that phone call was about to turn my peaceful Saturday afternoon into a war zone. I'm Wesley Thompson, 62 years old, and I'd worked 8 years in the Navy, plus 38 years as a mechanical engineer to afford this slice of paradise. This $2 million villa wasn't just a house. It was my reward for 46 years of discipline, careful saving, and putting everyone else's needs before my own. After selling my engineering firm last year, this was supposed to be my sanctuary. Wesley, we're already on our way to you. My son-in-law Caleb Rodriguez's voice hit my ear like a sledgehammer. No greeting, no pleasantries, just pure, undiluted entitlement. There'll be 8 of us, so get the bedrooms ready. We'll stay for 3 weeks. We'll be there in 45 minutes. My grip tightened on the phone. 45 minutes, 8 people, 3 weeks. I looked around my workshop, my sanctuary filled with vintage boat parts, fishing gear, and the classic car I'd been restoring for 2 years. This space represented everything I'd worked toward. Peace, independence, the freedom to create with my hands without anyone demanding my time or money. Caleb, wait a minute, I said, setting down the carburetor carefully. I haven't even fully moved in yet. The house isn't ready for guests. Listen, I don't care what you've got going on right now. His voice carried that familiar tone of casual dismissal, as if my concerns were mere background noise. You've got money, that means you've got space. End of discussion. The ocean breeze through my open garage doors carried the scent of salt and freedom, but Caleb's words poisoned the air. I gripped my workbench with my free hand, watching my knuckles whiten against the scarred wood where I'd spent countless peaceful hours since moving here a week ago. But Caleb, this is my first week here. I still have boxes everywhere. I don't have proper bedding set up for guests. Maybe next month when I'm more settled. Next month? His laugh was sharp, mocking. We're already driving, Wesley. Already committed. You wouldn't want to disappoint Miranda's kids from her first marriage, would you? They've been talking about Uncle Wesley's fancy beach house for weeks. Uncle Wesley. Not Grandpa Wesley, even though I'd helped raise those children after their mother died. Uncle, as if I were some distant relative obligated to provide entertainment for his convenience. The kids weren't even Rodriguez family, but shit too. They kept their biological father's surname, but Caleb claimed family authority over them anyway. Just have everything ready when we arrive, Caleb continued, his voice carrying that smugness that made my stomach turn. We're bringing beer, so make sure your fridge has space. Oh, and Miranda wants the master bedroom. It's got the best ocean view for her morning yoga videos, right? My master bedroom. The sanctuary I dreamed about for decades, with its private balcony overlooking the endless Pacific. The room where I'd planned to finally rest, to enjoy the fruits of 4 decades of careful living and strategic sacrifice. The master bedroom has perfect lighting. See you in 40 minutes now. Don't keep us waiting outside, old man. The line went dead. I stood motionless in my sunlit workshop, holding the silent phone like evidence of a crime. Through the windows, seagulls danced above the waves, their cries mixing with the distant sound of surf. This was supposed to be my paradise, my reward for a lifetime of putting others first. My hands still trembled slightly as I lowered the phone. 40 minutes. 8 people. 3 weeks. The Mustang's chrome bumper caught the afternoon light, throwing rainbow patterns across my organized tool wall. Such careful restoration work, just like the careful financial planning that had brought me to this moment. I walked toward the living room, past walls still bare of the artwork I'd carefully collected over the years. Everything waited in boxes, my life in limbo between the past and what I'd hoped would be a peaceful future. Sophia's photo smiled at me from the mantelpiece, the only item I'd unpacked first, needing her presence in this new space. I picked up the silver frame with shaking hands, studying her warm brown eyes, the gentle curve of her smile that reminded me so much of her mother's. 3 years since cancer took my daughter, but the ache remained fresh. Dad, Caleb's really trying to find work. Her voice echoed in my memory from those final months. Could you help us just this once? Just this once. Those 3 words had become the soundtrack of my relationship with Caleb Rodriguez, a song that had cost me $145,000 over 6 long years. I sank into the leather reading chair I'd positioned to face the ocean, Emily's photo cradled in my lap. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, but my mind drifted to darker times, to the systematic bleeding of my retirement accounts that had started with Sophia's illness. The first emergency had come 6 months after their wedding, long before Sophia got sick. Caleb's startup company had folded, leaving him unemployed with mounting credit card debt. $18,000 I transferred from my retirement savings, watching my carefully planned financial timeline shift forward by months. "You're so generous, Dad," Sophia had whispered over dinner that night, her eyes bright with gratitude. Caleb appreciates everything, even if he doesn't always show it. But Caleb never showed it. Not when I paid for his MBA program, $35,000 spread over 2 years. Not when I covered their mortgage down payment because his credit score couldn't secure a decent rate. $40,000 that time, money I'd earmarked for my own dream house fund. I ran my fingers through my gray hair, remembering how the pattern had emerged so gradually I hadn't seen it forming. Every few months, another crisis. Sophia's medical bills during her cancer treatment had been legitimate. $52,000 I'd gladly given to fight for her life. But even then, Caleb had somehow made it about himself, complaining about the stress affecting his job performance while I sat beside my daughter's hospital bed. The ocean waves crashed rhythmically below my deck, but I heard instead the sound of Caleb's voice during Sophia's funeral reception. At least now we won't have all these medical bills hanging over us. My stomach had turned that day, watching him network with mourners while I stood beside my daughter's casket. Even grief, it seemed, was just another opportunity for Caleb to focus on his own convenience. After Sophia died, I'd expected the requests to stop. Surely Caleb would find his footing, build his own stability, maybe even show some gratitude for the years of support. Instead, they intensified. Car repairs when his warranty expired, property taxes he'd forgotten to budget for, vacation expenses because Miranda deserved something special after everything we've been through. Miranda Rodriguez, the woman Caleb had married 8 months after my daughter's death, bringing her 2 children from her previous marriage into what he called our new family. Kids who still carried their biological father's name, but somehow I was expected to play grandfather while funding their stepfather's lifestyle. I kept a mental tally, though I tried not to. $145,000 over 6 years. Enough to buy a decent house in most American cities, enough to secure a comfortable retirement without the financial anxiety that still woke me at 3 a.m. despite my careful planning. Standing slowly, I placed Sophia's photo back on the mantelpiece and walked to my study. The ocean view from this room had sold me on the house, endless blue stretching to the horizon, promising peace and space to think. Instead, my reflection stared back from the window, an older man who'd spent 46 years building other people's dreams while his own gathered dust. The worst part wasn't the money. Money could be earned again, saved again, managed more carefully. The worst part was the gradual erosion of respect, the slow transformation from generous father-in-law to expected ATM. Caleb's tone had shifted over the years from grateful to entitled, from requesting to demanding. Today's call crystallized everything. No discussion of my circumstances, my needs, my plans for this house I'd saved 20 years to afford. Just assumptions and demands wrapped in the thin veneer of family obligation. 8 people descending on my sanctuary like locusts, consuming what I'd spent decades building. My hands drummed against the windowsill as anger built in my chest. A slow-burning heat I'd suppressed for too long. Sophia had always asked me to be patient with Caleb, to remember that people show love differently. But Sophia was gone, and Caleb's version of love looked suspiciously like systematic exploitation. The sound of car engines in the distance pulled me from my thoughts, faint but growing louder, multiple vehicles approaching up the winding coastal road that led to my villa. My 40 minutes of peace had evaporated faster than morning fog. I checked my watch, 3:15 p.m. Caleb had made good time. Through the study window, I could see dust clouds rising from the private road that connected my property to the main highway. 4 vehicles, maybe 5, moving in convoy formation like an invasion force approaching conquered territory. My jaw clenched as I watched them approach. This wasn't a family visit. This was a siege. The lead vehicle was Caleb's black SUV, followed by 2 sedans and a pickup truck loaded with coolers, beach equipment, and enough luggage for the month-long expedition he'd apparently planned in my home without my consent. I moved from the study window to the front entrance, watching through the side lights as the convoy discharged its passengers into my circular driveway. 8 people, just as Caleb had promised. 8 strangers about to claim my sanctuary as their vacation resort. My hand gripped the door handle, steadying myself for what was coming. Through the decorative glass, I watched Caleb emerge from his SUV like a general surveying conquered territory. Designer sunglasses despite the afternoon shadows, that cocky stride I'd grown to despise over the years. Miranda Rodriguez tumbled out of the passenger side, blonde hair whipping in the ocean breeze, immediately pulling out her phone to record everything for her social media followers. "Oh my God, you guys, look at this place!" Her voice carried clearly across the driveway. "It's like a resort. This is going to be the best content ever." I opened the door before they could ring the bell, hoping to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. That hope died instantly. "What's up, Wesley? How do you like our surprise?" Caleb pushed past me into the foyer without waiting for an invitation, his eyes already scanning the interior like he was taking inventory of my possessions. "Miranda, look, there's the hot tub I told you about. And check out that kitchen setup." "Caleb, I told you on the phone that I'm not ready for guests," I said, but my words were lost in the chaos as the rest of the group streamed through my front door like water through a broken dam. A man I recognized as Vincent Parker, Caleb's college roommate, let out a low whistle as he surveyed my living room. Dude's got serious money. Why not share it with family, right? Isabella Martinez, Miranda's younger sister, pushed through the crowd carrying 2 oversized suitcases. "This place is absolutely perfect for our vacation. The kids are gonna love that infinity pool." She gestured toward my infinity pool visible through the back windows, the one I'd specifically designed for quiet morning swims and peaceful evening reflection. "Stop being so dramatic, Wesley." Caleb had already made it to the living room, his wet sandals leaving sandy footprints on my imported Italian marble. "Family helps family. You taught me that, remember?" More people flooded in, faces I didn't recognize mixed with others I'd met at Sophia's funeral. Preston Walsh, someone's boyfriend, carried a cooler full of beer like he was arriving at a college tailgate party. 2 women I'd never seen before were already discussing room assignments as if I weren't standing right there in my own foyer. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice barely audible over the growing din. "Could everyone please—" "Oh my God, you guys have to see this kitchen!" Miranda had discovered my gourmet cooking space, the one I'd spent months designing with a local architect. She held her phone up, live streaming to her social media followers. "We're staying at my father-in-law's incredible beach house for 3 whole weeks. Look at this view. Father-in-law." The title felt like sandpaper against my ears. Caleb had never called me Dad, even when Sophia was alive. Always Wesley, always maintaining that emotional distance. But Miranda claimed the family connection when it suited her purposes, when it granted access to my resources. Someone had found my sound system and filled the house with thumping music that made conversation impossible. Bags and coolers appeared everywhere, dumped in the foyer, stacked against my pristine walls, claiming spaces throughout my sanctuary like territorial markers. "Wesley, we need to get everyone settled," Caleb announced, moving toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. "Miranda and I'll take the master suite, obviously. Vincent and Natalie can have the guest room with the ocean view. Isabella, you and Preston take the one with the private balcony." A parade of strangers followed behind him, already discussing who would sleep where in my carefully designed personal space. I stepped in front of him, blocking access to the bedroom wing. "The master bedroom is off limits. That's my private space." Caleb's laugh was sharp and dismissive. He placed a hand on my shoulder, not affectionately, but with the casual condescension of someone moving a piece of furniture. "Come on, Wesley, don't be selfish." We drove 4 hours to get here. Miranda specifically wants the room with the best lighting for her morning yoga videos. The physical contact felt like a violation. I stepped back, my military training automatically assessing the situation. Outnumbered 8-1 in my own home, surrounded by people who saw my boundaries as suggestions rather than rules. "Miranda needs that space for content creation," Caleb continued, simply pushing past me as if my resistance was purely theatrical. She's got sponsorship deals that depend on consistent posting, content creation, sponsorship deals. My master suite was becoming a commercial filming location without my consent. This is perfect. Miranda's voice echoed from my bedroom. The natural lighting in here is amazing. I can already see the engagement numbers this location will generate. I stood in my own foyer, feeling like a stranger in the house I dreamed about for 20 years. The ocean view through my windows remained beautiful, but it now framed a scene of occupation rather than tranquility. In the living room, Vincent had opened his beer cooler and was distributing drinks without asking permission. Isabella was rearranging my furniture to create better conversation areas. Someone's child, I hadn't even seen them arrive, was running around the pool deck in wet swimwear, leaving dark footprints on the Italian limestone I'd spent a fortune importing. The invasion was complete. In less than 20 minutes, my peaceful villa had been transformed into a crowded vacation rental. My careful organization destroyed by the casual chaos of entitled guests who saw my generosity as their birthright. Miranda emerged from my master bathroom like she owned the place, a white towel wrapped around her wet hair, water droplets marking a trail across my imported marble floors. She carried her designer suitcase with casual confidence, already planning where to arrange her belongings in my private sanctuary. "Excuse me." I planted myself firmly in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed. "This room is off limits." She paused, genuinely surprised by the resistance. "Oh, come on, Wesley. We talked about this already. The lighting in here is perfect for my morning routine videos. My followers are expecting consistent content." "No," I said, the word coming out harder than I'd intended. "Everyone needs to leave. Now." Miranda's blue eyes widened with practiced innocence. She shifted her suitcase to one hand and placed the other on her hip, a pose I recognized from her Instagram photos. "Wesley, honey, we're family. Why are you being so hostile?" Behind her, Caleb appeared in the hallway, drawn by the unexpected confrontation. His expression darkened when he saw me blocking access to what he'd already claimed as his territory. "Wesley, move aside," he commanded, his voice carrying the tone he'd perfected over years of getting his way. "We've been driving for hours. This is ridiculous. This is my house," I said, standing my ground, my voice gaining strength with each word. "I want all of you to leave immediately." Caleb's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Your house? Really? Did you forget everything you owe our family? Did you forget who the real victim is here?" The real victim. After $145,000, after 6 years of constant financial bleeding, after giving him my daughter's inheritance and my own retirement security, I was somehow the debtor in his twisted accounting system. "I don't owe you anything," I said, my hands shaking with suppressed rage that had been building for years. "This conversation is over." Miranda tried to squeeze past me with her suitcase, assuming my resistance was merely theatrical. I shifted to block her path, completely, and she stumbled backward with a gasp of genuine shock. "Wesley, that's so rude," she protested, her voice rising to that pitch she used when things didn't go her way. The commotion drew others from throughout the house. Vincent appeared with a beer in his hand, Preston close behind carrying beach towels like trophies. Isabella emerged from the guest bathroom, her makeup half applied, looking annoyed at the interruption. Someone turned down the music, and suddenly the entire group was watching our standoff with the fascinated attention of people witnessing a car accident. "Dude, what's your problem?" Vincent's voice carried the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to getting his way. "We're not hurting anything. We're just trying to have a vacation." "You're trespassing," I said, looking around at their faces, seeing entitled confusion where there should have been embarrassment. "All of you." Caleb placed his hand on my shoulder again with patronizing familiarity, like a parent dealing with a difficult child. "Emily would be ashamed of how selfish you've become, old man." That contact, unwanted, presumptuous, designed to diminish me in front of his audience, triggered something fundamental in my Navy-trained psyche. I jerked away from his touch with enough force to make him stumble backward. "Don't you dare touch me." My voice carried a tone I'd learned commanding sailors, one that made several people step back involuntarily. "And don't you ever use my daughter's name to justify your greed." Miranda's lower lip began to tremble in a performance I'd seen countless times when she wanted something expensive. "Daddy Wesley, we just wanted to spend time with you. We thought you'd be happy to share your beautiful house with family." Daddy Wesley. The nickname made my skin crawl. This woman who'd married my daughter's widower, who'd moved into the apartment I'd helped furnish, who'd worn Sophia's jewelry to their wedding without asking my permission. Happy? I looked around at the chaos they'd created in 30 minutes. You want me to be happy about strangers claiming my bedroom, ransacking my kitchen, treating my home like your personal resort? We're not strangers, Isabella protested, though I couldn't remember meeting her before today. We're Caleb's friends. That makes us practically family. Practically family. The phrase that apparently granted unlimited access to my life, my resources, my peace. Caleb sensed the mood shifting and tried to regain control with his most reasonable expression. Look, Wesley, I understand you're overwhelmed. Moving is stressful at your age. But we're here now. We've made arrangements, and turning us away would create serious problems for everyone. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Serious problems for whom? For his friends who'd driven 4 hours expecting a free vacation? For Miranda, who'd promised her social media followers exclusive content from a luxury villa? For Caleb, who'd painted himself as the generous family member, providing his friends with access to his wealthy father-in-law's property? The only problem, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system, is 8 people who think they can occupy someone else's home without permission. Without permission? Caleb's mask of reasonableness finally slipped completely. After everything this family has been through, after everything you put us through with your demands and expectations, everything I'd put them through, 6 years of writing checks, covering emergencies, enabling their lifestyle while they lived beyond their means, and somehow I was the one making demands. Preston stepped forward, his beer-scented confidence filling the hallway. Look, Pops, maybe you should just chill out. We'll clean up after ourselves. No harm, no foul. Pops. Another casual diminishment from a stranger drinking my beer in my hallway. The group was closing ranks now, their body language shifting from apologetic to defensive. 8 against 1 in my own home, assuming I'd capitulate like I had for years. Caleb moved closer again, his voice dropping to the ultimatum tone he'd always used when delivering threats. Think carefully about your next move, Wesley. Some decisions can't be undone. Some relationships can't be repaired once they're broken. There it was. The naked threat wrapped in concern for family harmony. Cross us and lose us forever, as if their presence in my life was a gift rather than the burden I'd carried for too long. I looked around at their faces, entitled, expectant, already calculating how to spin this story to make me the villain. In their minds, I was the unreasonable rich relative who'd forgotten his place in their hierarchy of need. But standing there in my own hallway, defending my own bedroom door, I finally understood something crucial. Some relationships were already broken. Some had never been real in the first place. The question wasn't whether I could afford to lose them. The question was whether I could afford to keep them. You're right about one thing, I said, stepping back from the bedroom doorway. Some decisions can't be undone. I turned and walked deliberately toward my study, fishing my phone from my pocket. Behind me, Miranda's voice rose in theatrical desperation. Where are you going? We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. From a woman who'd spent the last hour photographing herself in my bathroom for social media content. Finally coming to his senses, I heard Caleb mutter to Vincent, probably calling his lawyer to change his will or something equally dramatic. The study door felt solid and reassuring as I closed it behind me, turning the lock with a satisfying click. This room was my sanctuary within a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with my engineering texts, the massive oak desk where I'd planned my retirement finances for the last decade. Through the window, the Pacific stretched endlessly, indifferent to human drama playing out in expensive houses built on its shores. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's professional calm steadied my nerves, reminding me of the radio communications I'd handled during my Navy years. Clear, direct, factual. I need police assistance. There are people in my home who refuse to leave when asked. Sir, are you in immediate physical danger? Outside the study door, I could hear urgent whispers and the sound of footsteps. They were gathering, planning their next approach, probably trying to figure out who I was calling and what it meant for their vacation plans. Not yet, but they're refusing to leave my property after being told multiple times to go. Can you verify that this is your legal residence, sir? Yes, I'm the homeowner. I purchased the property last month. I can provide documentation. The title papers sat in my desk drawer, official proof of ownership that felt suddenly precious in a way I'd never imagined when I'd first held them. Heavy knocking erupted on the study door, making the solid wood vibrate in its frame. "Wesley!" Caleb's voice carried forced joviality, the tone of someone trying to regain control of a situation that was slipping away. "Come on out. Let's discuss this reasonably." "Sir, how many individuals are involved?" The operator's questions followed standard protocol, each one reinforcing that I had legal standing here, that my concerns were legitimate. 8 people. They arrived without invitation about an hour ago and are refusing to leave despite multiple requests. The knocking intensified, becoming more insistent. I could hear Miranda's voice joining Caleb's, higher-pitched and artificially sweet. "Daddy Wesley, please don't do anything crazy. We can work this out like family. Officers are being dispatched to your location," the operator said. "Can you remain in a secure area until they arrive?" "Yes, I'm in my study with the door locked." The relief in my voice surprised me. After an hour of feeling outnumbered and dismissed, someone was finally treating my concerns as legitimate, acknowledging my right to control access to my own property. "Estimated arrival time is 15 to 20 minutes. Stay on the line if you feel unsafe." Through the door, I could hear the group's whispered conference growing more agitated. Someone, Ashley I thought, suggested they should just leave before this gets out of hand. But Caleb's voice cut through the uncertainty with his usual arrogance. "He's bluffing. Wesley doesn't have the backbone for this. He'll come out in 5 minutes and apologize for the misunderstanding." The backbone. After 46 years of military service and engineering work, after building a career that provided for everyone around me, after sacrificing my own dreams repeatedly for others' comfort, he questioned my backbone. "Thank you, officer." "The police are on their way," I said, ending the call and sitting back in my leather chair, feeling calmer than I had all day. The pounding on the door escalated from knocking to serious hammering, the sound echoing through my study like gunshots. "Open this door right now!" Caleb's mask of civility had finally dropped completely. "This is family business, not a police matter." But it wasn't family business. Family doesn't invade. Family doesn't ignore clear boundaries. Family doesn't threaten consequences when their exploitation is challenged. "Wesley, please." Miranda's voice cracked with what might have been genuine emotion for the first time today. "How can you do this to us? We trusted you. They trusted me to provide unlimited access to my resources, to absorb their problems without complaint, to remain grateful for the privilege of being used. But trust was supposed to work both ways, and they'd violated mine the moment they'd dismissed my clearly stated boundaries." Vincent's voice joined the chorus outside my door. "Dude, this is insane. We're just trying to have a vacation, at my expense, in my home, without my consent." The casual entitlement in his voice crystallized everything wrong with this situation. Through the study window, I watched seagulls wheel over the waves, free and unconstrained. For 46 years, I'd been the provider, the problem solver, the reliable source of solutions for everyone else's crises. When had I become the villain for wanting peace in my own home? The hammering on the door reached a crescendo, then suddenly stopped. Urgent whispers replaced the pounding as they realized their tactical error. Making threats and demands while I called police wasn't enhancing their position. "Wesley," Caleb's voice had shifted to wounded innocence, the tone of someone trying to salvage a deteriorating situation. "We just want to understand what's wrong. Why are you so angry with us? What's wrong?" 6 years of financial exploitation, an hour of home invasion, 8 strangers claiming my bedroom, drinking my beer, planning my social calendar. The question itself proved how little he understood about basic human decency. My phone buzzed with text messages. Caleb had apparently decided on a parallel pressure campaign, flooding my phone with manipulation attempts. "Sophia would want us to be together as a family. You're destroying relationships that can never be rebuilt. Think about what you're doing to innocent people who just wanted to spend time with you." Innocent people. I deleted the messages without reading the rest, watching through my study window as the afternoon shadows grew longer. Footsteps moved away from the door as the group retreated to plan their next move. Through the thin walls, I could hear heated arguments erupting in my living room. Some voices advocated for immediate departure. Others insisted on standing their ground, convinced this was all a bluff that would blow over once I came to my senses. 15 minutes. The police would arrive in 15 minutes, and this nightmare would end. I'd spent decades avoiding confrontation, smoothing over problems, writing checks to make difficulties disappear. Today, for the first time in my adult life, I'd called for backup instead of capitulating to unreasonable demands. The sensation was both terrifying and liberating, like stepping off a cliff and discovering I could fly. The sound of sirens in the distance made my heart race with anticipation rather than fear. Help was coming. Professional assistance from people who understood property rights and legal boundaries, who wouldn't be swayed by emotional manipulation or false claims of family obligation. Outside my study door, the urgent whispers turned to panic-stricken strategy sessions. I could hear rapid footsteps as people scattered in multiple directions, finally understanding that their assumptions about my character had been dangerously wrong. "Everyone just stay calm," Caleb's voice carried forced authority, but I could hear the strain underneath. "Let me handle this. It's just a misunderstanding between family members." A misunderstanding. 8 uninvited guests refusing to leave someone's home wasn't a misunderstanding, it was trespassing, pure and simple. But Caleb's entire worldview required casting himself as the reasonable party in every conflict, the victim of other people's unreasonable behavior. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the afternoon air like the sound of Judgment Day approaching. Through my walls, I could hear the scramble of people trying to appear casual, frantically cleaning up beer bottles and hiding evidence of their invasion. Someone was moving luggage, probably trying to make it look like they'd just arrived rather than having been here for over an hour against my explicit wishes. The sound of running water suggested someone was cleaning up the wet footprints around my pool. Too little, too late. The damage was done, the boundaries crossed, the threats made. There was no walking back from this moment, no pretending it had been a simple miscommunication between family members who loved each other. The doorbell rang with official authority, not the casual finger tap of social visitors, but the sustained professional pressure of law enforcement officers who'd been summoned to resolve a property dispute. "I'll get it," Caleb announced, his voice projecting confidence he clearly didn't feel. "This whole thing will be cleared up in 5 minutes once I explain the situation." But there was no explaining away the fundamental facts. This was my house. I'd asked them to leave. They'd refused. Everything else was just noise designed to obscure those simple, legally significant truths. I unlocked my study door and emerged to find the group arranged in the living room like they were hosting some kind of family intervention. Caleb had positioned himself near the front door, preparing to control the narrative from the moment the officers entered. Miranda sat on my Italian leather sofa with red-rimmed eyes, clutching tissues like props in her performance of innocent victimhood. The transformation was remarkable. In the space of 10 minutes, they'd gone from entitled invaders to concerned family members dealing with an elderly relative's episode. Beer bottles had vanished, wet footprints were cleaned up, and everyone had arranged themselves in poses of respectful concern. "Good evening, officers." Caleb opened the door with practiced charm, his voice carrying exactly the right note of worried bewilderment. "I'm afraid there's been a family misunderstanding. My father-in-law seems to be having some kind of stress-related episode since his move. An episode. Of course, I was the problem, not the 8 people who'd invaded my home without permission." In Caleb's version of reality, calling police on trespassers was evidence of mental instability rather than appropriate self-protection. 2 officers entered with professional authority that immediately shifted the room's dynamic. The senior officer, a gray-tempered man who introduced himself as Officer Marshall Brooks, commanded respect simply by his presence. His partner, Officer Stephanie Morgan, was younger, but carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd dealt with domestic disputes before. Suddenly, Caleb's swagger seemed forced, and Miranda's tears looked theatrical rather than genuine. "Sir, are you the homeowner who called about trespassing?" Officer Brooks addressed me directly, his tone professional but sympathetic, cutting through Caleb's attempt to frame the narrative. "Yes, I'm Wesley Thompson. This is my property." I pulled the deed from my study, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. These people arrived without invitation and refused to leave when asked. Officer Morgan scanned the room with trained eyes, taking in the scattered luggage, the general chaos of too many people in a space designed for quiet living, and the obvious tension crackling between me and the group. "How many individuals are we talking about, Mr. Thompson?" 8 when they arrived about an hour ago. They may all still be here." I gestured toward the group, some of whom were trying to make themselves invisible behind furniture and luggage. Caleb stepped forward with his most reasonable expression, the one he'd perfected for getting out of traffic tickets and talking his way into upgrades. Officers, this is clearly a family dispute that got out of hand. Wesley's been under tremendous stress since moving to this new house, and I think he's just overwhelmed by having visitors. We're family, this isn't a criminal matter. Sir, Officer Brooks replied, examining my property deed with the attention it deserved, family relationships don't override property rights under California law. The homeowner has the legal authority to determine who stays on his property, regardless of family status. The simple statement hit the room like a physical blow. For the first time all day, someone in authority had confirmed what I'd been saying all along. This was my house, purchased with my money, and my decision about who could enter or remain was legally absolute. Miranda looked genuinely shocked, as if the concept of property rights was completely foreign to her understanding of how the world worked. But we're family. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? Ma'am, Officer Morgan's expression remained neutral and professional. Family status doesn't grant automatic access to someone else's property without the owner's permission. That's basic property law. Permission? Caleb's voice rose despite his attempt to stay controlled. He's been planning this villa as a family gathering place for months. We just assumed he'd want us here. This is all a misunderstanding. You assumed wrong. Officer Brooks cut him off with the authority of someone who'd heard every excuse in the book. Mr. Thompson, do you want these individuals removed from your property? The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. 8 faces stared at me with varying degrees of anger, pleading, and disbelief. All of them finally understanding that their assumptions about family privilege had been legally meaningless from the moment they'd crossed my threshold uninvited. For years, I'd been trained to consider everyone else's needs before my own, to smooth over conflicts rather than enforce boundaries, to write checks instead of calling authorities. But standing in my own living room with 2 police officers confirming my legal rights, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in decades. Yes, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. I want them all to leave immediately. No explanation, no justification, no apology for setting basic boundaries in my own home. Just a clear statement of what I wanted to happen on my property. You heard Mr. Thompson. Officer Morgan addressed the group with professional authority. You have 15 minutes to gather your belongings and vacate the premises. Anyone who remains after that time will be arrested for trespassing under California Penal Code Section 602. The scramble began immediately. Vincent and Preston moved fastest, grabbing their beer cooler and mumbling apologies as they headed for the door without making eye contact. The women I didn't recognize simply fled, abandoning their beach towels and disappearing into the evening without bothering to say goodbye. This is completely ridiculous, Caleb protested as he watched his authority collapse in real time. We drove 4 hours to get here. We made arrangements with family and friends. You can't just throw us out like we're criminals. You made arrangements without consulting the property owner, Officer Brooks replied patiently. That doesn't constitute a legal reservation, sir, and continuing to argue with law enforcement officers isn't improving your situation. Isabella shot accusatory looks at Caleb while stuffing clothes into her suitcase, clearly blaming him for creating a situation that had spiraled beyond anyone's control. The fantasy vacation he'd promised had turned into a humiliating legal confrontation that would probably end their friendship. Miranda was gathering her belongings from my master bedroom, her movements sharp with anger and disbelief. She paused in the doorway to deliver what she clearly thought would be a devastating parting shot. Wesley, you're going to regret this decision for the rest of your life. Family doesn't treat family this way. But watching strangers remove their possessions from my private spaces felt like reclaiming stolen territory rather than destroying relationships. Caleb made one final attempt at manipulation as he packed his SUV, his voice carrying the wounded tone he'd perfected for getting sympathy from authority figures. Sophia would be ashamed of what you've become, old man. Selfish and bitter, choosing money over family. The words hit like a physical blow, exactly as he'd intended. Using my dead daughter's memory as a weapon against me, trying to make me doubt my decision by invoking the one person whose opinion had always mattered most. Officer Brooks stepped between us before I could respond, his presence a reminder that this was now a legal matter rather than a family dispute. Sir, you need to leave the property now. Any further contact with Mr. Thompson could be considered harassment under California law. The last car pulled out of my driveway as the sun touched the horizon, painting my villa in golden light that seemed to celebrate rather than mourn their departure. Officer Morgan completed her paperwork while Officer Brooks explained the documentation process with military precision I appreciated. You'll have a formal report number for your records, Mr. Thompson. If any of these individuals return to your property without your explicit permission, call us immediately. Today's incident establishes a clear pattern of trespassing that will support any future legal action. The formal language was music to my engineer's ears: documented, official, legally binding protection against future invasion attempts. After the officers left, I stood alone in my foyer for the first time since this nightmare had begun, surrounded by blessed silence that felt like a physical embrace. The chaos was gone: scattered beer bottles, sandy footprints, the sound of entitled voices claiming my spaces as their vacation resort. I walked through my villa like a homeowner reclaiming property after a natural disaster, cataloging what needed to be restored to my careful organization. Beer cans clustered on my granite countertops where Vincent had established his personal bar. Wet towel prints darkened my hardwood floors from Miranda's bathroom photography sessions. Furniture sat askew where strangers had rearranged my careful design to suit their comfort. In the guest bathroom, Miranda's makeup still stained my marble vanity, like territorial markings she'd forgotten to clean up in her rush to escape police attention. But it was the master bedroom that felt most violated in ways beyond the physical. Someone had moved Sophia's photo from my nightstand, probably knocked over during their claiming of my private space. I picked up the silver frame with hands that trembled slightly, studying my daughter's gentle face through glass that had somehow remained uncracked. "I think you'd understand, sweetheart," I whispered to her image. "You taught me to be generous, not stupid." My phone buzzed insistently from the kitchen counter where I'd abandoned it during the confrontation. The screen showed 17 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Caleb Rodriguez. I read them in chronological order, watching his tone shift from wounded confusion to naked threat as the reality of his situation penetrated his denial. "Wesley, we need to talk about what happened today. You embarrassed Miranda in front of our friends. That's not acceptable behavior from family. Family doesn't call police on family. Sophia would be disgusted by your selfishness. You think this is over? You have no idea what's coming. By tomorrow, everyone will know what kind of person you really are. Enjoy your empty house. It's all you'll have left after I'm done telling our story." The messages continued, each one darker and more threatening than the last. Caleb's mask had finally slipped completely, revealing the manipulative core I'd been too generous to acknowledge for 6 years. But his threats were also creating their own evidence trail, documenting his character for any future legal proceedings. I poured myself 3 fingers of scotch from the bottle I'd been saving for my first peaceful evening in this house, and settled into my leather reading chair positioned to capture the perfect ocean view. Outside, sunset painted the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson, the daily masterpiece I'd bought this villa to enjoy. Yet Caleb's threats cast shadows across even this beauty. Had I been too harsh? The question nagged at me despite the legal validation. They were family, however dysfunctional. Sophia's friends, her chosen relationships, her husband's new life. By calling police, had I destroyed bridges that could never be rebuilt? But then I remembered Miranda's casual appropriation of my master bedroom for content creation, Vincent's assumption that my refrigerator was his personal beer storage, and Caleb's threat about serious problems if I didn't comply with their demands. These weren't the actions of people who respected me as family. These were the behaviors of opportunistic strangers who saw my generosity as weakness to be exploited. My phone buzzed again with another message from Caleb, this one accompanied by a photo of Miranda crying in their car, her mascara streaked down her cheeks in theatrical rivulets designed to maximize emotional impact. "Look what you did to her. Are you happy now? This is what your selfishness looks like." I deleted the message without responding. Miranda's tears might be real, but so was my exhaustion from years of financial manipulation. So was my right to peace in my own home. So was the $145,000 I'd given them without receiving even basic courtesy in return. The scotch burned warm in my chest as I continued my house restoration ritual. Each straightened piece of furniture felt like reclaiming stolen territory. Each cleaned surface erased evidence of their presumption. The physical work helped process the emotional earthquake of finally saying no after decades of automatic compliance. But as evening deepened into night, unease crept in alongside satisfaction. Caleb's final messages had carried an ominous certainty that worried me more than his earlier rage. "You have no idea what's coming" wasn't the frustrated threat of someone accepting defeat. It was a promise from someone planning retaliation. I'd won the battle for my home, but something in Caleb's tone suggested the war was just beginning. Outside my windows, the ocean waves continued their eternal rhythm, washing the beach clean with each cycle while carrying away debris and leaving fresh sand for tomorrow's possibilities. But tomorrow would also bring whatever Caleb was planning, some form of revenge designed to make me regret choosing my peace over his convenience. Sunlight streamed through my kitchen windows as I reached for my silent phone to check the time. 8:47 a.m. I'd slept poorly, Caleb's threats echoing through restless dreams filled with courtrooms and family confrontations. The device felt warm in my palm as the screen lit up with a cascade of notifications that made my stomach drop. 47 alerts from Facebook, Instagram, and text messages. My email showed dozens of new messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Something had happened overnight, something significant enough to wake my entire social network from their usual digital slumber. I opened Facebook first, immediately finding Caleb's post at the top of my feed. The words hit like a calculated assault on everything I'd thought was settled yesterday. My father-in-law kicked his own family out of his house yesterday, called the police on us like we were criminals. Money really does change people, doesn't it? My late wife Sophia would be heartbroken to see what her father has become. We just wanted to spend time with him at his new mansion, but apparently we're not worthy anymore. Prayers needed for our family during this difficult time. The post had been shared 43 times overnight, spreading through social media like a virus designed to destroy reputations. Comments poured down the screen in an avalanche of judgment from people who had only Caleb's carefully crafted version of events. Heartbreaking. Can't believe someone would treat family this way. Money corrupts everything. Poor Miranda and those kids. What happened to taking care of your own family? Kids. There had been children mentioned in Caleb's call, but I hadn't seen any yesterday. His narrative was already growing more tragic in the retelling, each shared version adding details designed to maximize emotional impact. Miranda had posted her own video testimonial, filmed in their car with red-rimmed eyes and a trembling voice that would have impressed professional actresses. I just can't understand how someone who used to love us could turn so cold. We brought friends to meet him, to share in his success, and he treated us like strangers. Sophia used to say her dad was the most generous man alive. I guess money really does change people. My hands shook as I scrolled through the responses. Old neighbors from my previous house, colleagues from my engineering firm, even Sophia's college friends, all expressing shock and disappointment at my supposed transformation into a heartless miser. The narrative was simple, compelling, and completely false. But Caleb had presented his version first, claiming the moral high ground before I even knew a war had started. I tried commenting on his post, my fingers clumsy on the small keyboard as anger clouded my thinking. This is completely one-sided. Caleb brought 8 people to my house without invitation or permission. When I asked them to leave, they refused. I had every legal right to call police, but my comment looked defensive and desperate against Caleb's emotional appeal. Within minutes, replies appeared like a pack of wolves sensing wounded prey. Classic gaslighting behavior, Wesley. Why are you trying to justify abandoning family? 8. People sounds exaggerated. Are you trying to make them sound like an army? Caleb's response came quickly, each word calculated to inflict maximum damage. See how he's trying to rewrite history? This is exactly the kind of manipulation Sophia used to complain about in private. She loved her dad, but she knew he could be controlling when he didn't get his way. Sophia complaining about me in private. The lie was so audacious, so calculating, that it took my breath away. But people were believing it, sharing it, adding their own interpretations of my character based on Caleb's fictional narrative. Isabella had shared the post with her own commentary, disgusting behavior from someone who should know better. Miranda's like a sister to me, and seeing her treated this way makes me sick. Vincent added his perspective. We drove 4 hours just to spend time with family. Got treated like criminals for wanting to use his pool. Rich people problems, I guess. A pool party. That's what they were calling their invasion now. A simple request to use family facilities, cruelly denied by a bitter old man with more money than heart. I moved to my study, coffee growing cold as I read comment after comment from people who'd known me for decades, now questioning my character based on Caleb's carefully crafted sob story. Former neighbors expressed disappointment. Sophia's friends spoke of feeling deceived about my true nature. Catherine Phillips, Sophia's closest college friend, had written, "Wesley, I'm shocked. This doesn't sound like the man Sophia described. What happened to you?" I tried responding privately. Catherine, there's much more to this story. Caleb brought 8 people to my house without asking, claimed my master bedroom, and refused to leave when I asked them to. The police confirmed I had every right to remove them. Her reply came within an hour, crushing what little hope I'd had for reasonable dialogue. I find it hard to believe Sophia's husband would lie about something like this. Maybe you should look at your own behavior instead of blaming others. The realization hit me like cold water. Caleb had weaponized Sophia's memory and their shared grief. He was the suffering widower, the devoted husband still mourning my daughter 3 years later. I was the wealthy father-in-law who'd abandoned him in his time of need, choosing money over family bonds. Every attempt to defend myself made me look worse. Social media rewarded emotional authenticity over factual accuracy, and Caleb's tearful narrative was perfectly calibrated for viral sympathy. My dry explanations about property rights and legal documentation sounded petty against his heartbroken father story. By noon, the post had been shared 87 times. Local community groups were picking it up as a human interest story about family dysfunction in wealthy neighborhoods. Comment threads spawned their own discussions, each one amplifying Caleb's version while dismissing my attempts at clarification. But sitting in my study, surrounded by 38 years of engineering certificates and professional achievements, I remembered something crucial from my Navy days. Never fight the enemy on terrain of their choosing. Caleb might understand social media manipulation, but I understood something more fundamental: how to break complex problems into manageable components and solve them systematically. I opened my filing cabinet with deliberate precision, retrieving the folder labeled Family Financial Assistance, a habit from my engineering days of documenting everything for tax and legal purposes. Inside, bank statements, canceled checks, and transfer receipts told the real story in black and white numbers that couldn't be manipulated by emotional appeals. Spreading the documents across my desk chronologically, I began calculating with the same methodical approach I'd used to solve structural problems for 38 years. MBA tuition payments, $35,000 over 2 years. House down payment, $40,000 when Caleb's credit couldn't secure decent terms. Emergency debt relief, $18,000 in a single month. Sophia's medical bills, $52,000 in documented payments to hospitals and specialists. The total reached $145,000 in 6 years of systematic financial support. Not gifts given freely among equals, but an escalating pattern of demands backed by family guilt and my daughter's illness. Every payment had a date, amount, and bank record. Caleb had forgotten he was dealing with an engineer who documented everything for estate planning purposes. His emotional Facebook narrative would crumble against this mountain of financial evidence. I picked up my phone and dialed Maxwell Stevens, my estate attorney since Sophia's death. We'd worked together on my will, trust arrangements, and property purchases, a professional relationship built on mutual respect and careful documentation. Maxwell, it's Wesley Thompson. I need legal advice about family financial gifts that have become complicated. Wesley, good to hear from you. What kind of complications are we talking about? My son-in-law has been posting false information about me on social media, claiming I abandoned the family. But I have documentation showing $145,000 in financial support over 6 years. No loan agreements, no repayment schedules. I treated them as gifts, but now I'm wondering about legal options. Maxwell's pause was thoughtful. The distinction between gifts and loans can be legally significant, Wesley. Without written agreements, debt recovery can be challenging, but there are options. Detrimental reliance, unjust enrichment. Several theories we could explore. Do you have comprehensive documentation? Bank records for everything. Dates, amounts, purposes. I can show the pattern of increasing demands and his lifestyle being maintained through my funding while he publicly claims poverty. Excellent. This kind of systematic exploitation might fall under elder financial abuse statutes, especially given the pattern and amounts involved. Let's meet Monday morning. Bring everything you have. I scheduled the appointment and returned to my document analysis, creating a detailed spreadsheet that revealed the true scope of Caleb's financial dependence. His social media posts complained about money problems while my bank records showed steady payments supporting his lifestyle. The contradiction was damning. Opening Caleb's Facebook page, I began screenshotting his financial complaints and requests for help dating back years. Posts about needing money for car repairs while I was paying his insurance. Complaints about expensive medical bills while my accounts showed direct payments to his doctors. Miranda's Instagram revealed even more damaging evidence. Photos of expensive vacations, designer clothes, restaurant meals at high-end establishments, all funded by money I'd provided while they portrayed themselves as struggling family members deserving sympathy. By afternoon, I had assembled a comprehensive file documenting 6 years of financial manipulation, timeline of payments, screenshots of contradictory social media posts, analysis of lifestyle expenses versus declared income, evidence of systematic deception spanning years. Caleb's Facebook narrative portrayed me as a wealthy miser abandoning poor relatives. My documentation showed the opposite, a generous father-in-law systematically exploited by manipulative in-laws who'd received $145,000 while portraying themselves as victims. The irony was perfect. Caleb's strength, his ability to manipulate public perception, had created his weakness. Every social media post claiming poverty was now evidence of deception. Every photograph of expensive purchases was proof of fraudulent financial need. Monday morning arrived with military precision. I reached the courthouse at 7:45 a.m., briefcase loaded with documentation that would transform me from defendant in public opinion to plaintiff in legal reality. Case filing for debt recovery and defamation, I told the clerk, sliding my comprehensive legal package across the counter. She examined the documentation with growing professional appreciation. "This is exceptionally well prepared, Mr. Thompson," she noted, processing my payment and assigning a case number. "Judge Turner handles debt recovery cases. You'll likely get expedited hearing due to evidence quality." While court officers delivered papers that would shatter Caleb's confidence, I returned home to launch my social media counterattack. I crafted my response with engineering precision. No anger, no defensiveness, just documented facts presented professionally. I've seen concerning posts about our family situation. Here are the documented facts. I attached screenshots of bank transfers totaling $145,000, organized chronologically with clear descriptions. These funds were provided freely during difficult times, but recent events have changed everything. I'm pursuing legal recovery through proper channels. Within minutes, responses began flooding in. Shock, apologies, demands for Caleb to explain the financial evidence he'd conveniently omitted. Catherine Phillips commented immediately, "Wesley, I had no idea about the financial support. I apologize for judging without facts." At 11:15 a.m., my phone rang. Caleb's name appeared. Panic instead of his usual arrogance. "You filed a lawsuit against me?" His voice carried genuine terror. "Wesley, this is family business. We can work this out privately." "Family business ended when you brought 8 strangers to my home and refused to leave," I replied calmly. "Family business ended when you posted lies to destroy my reputation. What do you want? Money? I can pay some back. The court will determine appropriate restitution. My attorney handles all communication now." 3 months later, I entered the courthouse with calm confidence. Across the hallway, Caleb sat beside a harried public defender. His arrogant posture collapsed into defeated resignation. Judge Turner reviewed the comprehensive file. "Mr. Thompson, your documentation is extraordinary. Mr. Rodriguez, your counsel indicates settlement discussions." After brief negotiation, Caleb agreed to $75,000 restitution over 3 years, public retraction of social media statements, and cessation of defamatory communication. "I accept the settlement, Your Honor. Justice doesn't require destroying someone, just holding them accountable." That evening, sitting on my deck with wine and watching peaceful waves, I felt Sophia's presence more clearly than since her death. Not the manipulated memory Caleb had weaponized, but her genuine spirit, generous but wise, kind, but not naive. Justice had been served, peace had been restored, and for the first time in years, I looked forward to tomorrow with uncompromised hope.